couple ways. First, I think that some sort of meditation is imperative. Whether it's a formal meditation you do or whether it's just 30 minutes of quiet time without your phone, sitting out in nature, wherever you want to do it, you need to be okay with being alone. I'm not saying for weeks, I'm saying for 30 minutes. I challenge people to go sit quietly for 30 minutes outside without anything at anyone. And at first they'll probably be very uncomfortable. But if you just let your mind be a little, just let it go and do its thing, you know, it'll be a little crazy at first probably, but then you'll settle in and realize, wow, it's been 45 minutes. Your mind needs that. You just have to have it. It's like a recharge. So I do a formal meditation. I actually, you know, for 15 minutes, I actually meditate, and I think it matters. But the second thing is being aware of your thinking. You must be aware of your thoughts. I do a lot of things where I plan ahead so I don't use my mental energy on things that I don't need to. Because if you, like, for example, I plan out my meal plan for the week on a certain day. I grocery shop the next day and it's done. I don't have to think every day, what am I going to have for dinner? And I know that sounds very simplistic, but your thought energy is limited. And if you're using it on something that you could plan ahead and give yourself more thought energy towards those things that you really are motivated and passionate about, then you'll get further. And then the last is just a little bit of, you know, making sure those thoughts are positive. When you actually have to notice if you're on a negative train, maybe give yourself a little bit of like, okay, I got 5 minutes to go all negative and then I'm done. And then you bring yourself, you know, up into thinking stuff that's positive, because they say like 60% or 60 to 80% of the thoughts we have are negative, and that's very impactful of our mind.
So I always had a fear of heights. I was the kid at the local community pool on the 5 or 10 meter board. I never jumped off of it. My twin brother would make fun of me. He was always jumping. So when I went to the Air Force Academy, in order to graduate the academy, you had to jump off this 10 meter board, 33 feet high diving board. And it was during swim class. I think it was either the end of freshman year or my sophomore year. And it was part of water survival training. You had to jump off that diving board, swim underneath this little simulated canal area, and then come out the other side. And so I looked to the instructor of the class and I said, do I have to jump off that thing? And he said, absolutely. You don't graduate the academy or have any chance of flying unless you complete water survival training and jump off that diving board with a 35-pound pack on your back. And so I was thinking to myself, this wasn't in that marketing catalog, right? It wasn't there. So I was faced with this choice, like I got to face my fear of heights. So my dream was on the opposite side of that diving board. My dream was in the water. I couldn't stay up there and achieve my dreams. So I had to take that leap of faith. I had to jump. I had to step out of my comfort zone. And it wasn't as hard as I thought it would be. And normally our fears are normally, that's the case, right? It's normally not that hard. And so I jumped, and then I remember getting out of the water and climbing up the ladder and jumping again and doing it 2 or 3 more times just to get it out of my system. And it was my first confrontation of really facing a massive fear that I had and understanding that it wasn't as tough as I thought it was, but also how you have to elevate that passion over your fear and to tap in to that dream. And many of us either have this dream, or we don't have clarity on that dream, or we give up when that diving board, that 33 feet leap, hits us. And your decision to make that leap is going to determine your future. And so Many times, huh? And you're married. Do you have children? I'm sorry. Do you have children?
I have
Or
three,
you
yeah.
do? Three children. How old are your kids?
One is 20, and then 15, and then 13.
Okay, so young. You have a couple of young kids. Now, like if you were afraid of heights, I don't know if you're afraid of heights, but if your kids were in the water screaming, "Daddy, Daddy, help me," you wouldn't care. Like if it was 33 feet, 66 feet, you would jump. And most people who are massively afraid of heights would jump if their children or their loved ones, somebody who needed them, was in the water screaming, "Help me." And so more often than not, when we have a passion and a goal and we're faced with a headwind, a missile, a diving board, this fear, we have to tap in to what it is that we love. What is that goal that we love? What is that dream that we love? What is it that the human, the child that we love, what are we willing to sacrifice in order to save or accomplish our goals? And many times in life, people who are peak performers, we forget about what it is that we love. We forget about the challenge, the goal, the dream, the growth, the people that we're impacting, the love, the service. And when fear comes, we don't build up the resilience to take that leap and to face our fears. So many times we have to remind ourselves what it is, not just what we fight for, but what we love for. You know, you've heard the expression, what keeps you up at night? Hey, what's keeping you up at night, huh? Right? That's a very common business question. Have you ever heard that expression?
Yes.
Yeah. So what's keeping you up? You know, but I think it's not what keeps us up at night that matters. It's what gets us out of bed. What keeps us up at night is fear-based. It's anxiety-provoking. It's the 33 feet high diving board. It's the fear, and it holds us back. What gets us out of bed is exhilarating. It's inspirational. It's aspirational. It doesn't promote fear. It incites courage. And it only happens when you're tapped into what it is that you love, that cockpit, the plane, the dream, the child that loves you, your spouse, your future, your goal of opening your business, closing your first sale, whatever that is. You got to tap into that and stay focused on that and be focused on that instead of the fear, and it'll help you overcome your fears. So my fear of heights, and then eventually claustrophobia, when I almost died in a scuba diving accident, suddenly I was jumping in the plane and having these panic attacks, and I had to go back and tap into what I loved, tap into my dream, and also tap into the fact that I wasn't flying solo, that I had other folks on my team, my wingmen, who were backing me up and supporting me and absorbing my fear. And this is where others can help you take that leap of faith and face your anxieties and fears and be a performer and accomplish your goals.
So when I was a little girl, very young, up until primary school, so when I was 6, 7, 8 years old, my family would come up to Cape Cod in our country, which is a part of Massachusetts that sticks out into the water. There's lots of beaches, water, the ocean. My grandparents, my maternal, my mother's side grandparents, lived here on Cape Cod, sort of where I live now. And I had been born and raised in Maryland, but when I retired, I finally did retire up here to Cape Cod because of those childhood memories with my grandfather. So my granddad had a rowboat, and he would take me out when I was a little girl. My grandma would make us sandwiches, like peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, and my granddad would row the boat out into the bay, not the ocean, but a bay about a mile or two long, like the one I live on now. And he would teach me how to row. And for anybody who's rowed when they're young, you get into a rowboat, you have an oar in each hand. And when you're really little, first of all, the oars are heavy. Second of all, one oar always hits the water before the other, and then your boat goes the wrong way, and you just like wonder, am I ever going to get this little rowboat to go in a straight line? Because there's so many things that I'm just, I can't do this. And so my granddad would show me how to balance the oars and how to get my timing down and be patient. And he was very calm, cool, and collected. So he was a wise man. My granddad was a really wise man, which is interesting to say because he didn't have global travel experience or anything, but he was older. And I really think there's something to do with wisdom that you just don't have as a young person. There is wisdom. It takes time, over a lifetime. So my granddad was a wise man in his own way. And wisdom isn't something you can just put in a jar and sell. My granddad had his own form of wisdom, and that was knowing how to teach a young girl, how to pass it on to a young girl to help her have an experience on the water where I could eventually dominate those oars and I could row. And then once we rowed out into the middle of the bay, we could eat our sandwich. I could dive down and swim and find clams and have a great time. And it was all because I learned how to row out into the water and to do something hard and get there and then have the experience, the fun of being there. But yeah, my granddad taught me that. He taught me the perseverance, that there's a reward once you learn something. He taught me to love the water because otherwise I wouldn't have had a connection with the water and wouldn't have thought about the Naval Academy, the Coast Guard Academy. And that little experience as a girl that my grandfather gave me set the course for my entire life. So what I would say is, for anybody out there who's watching right now, there's somebody in your life who's younger than you, who's more inexperienced than you, who's less capable than you, that you can guide and mentor and pass on your wisdom. You might not have a whole lot of wisdom, but you have got more than they do in different ways. So I would challenge people to find a way to pass on something to somebody else who needs it, either at work or at home, a young little girl like me or an older person that needs some encouragement. So there's all kinds of ways you can pass your wisdom along, and you never know what kind of an impact it's going to make. And my granddad taking me out on the ocean, on the water when I was young, set the course for my entire rest of my life. And he would never know that he had made that impact on me because he ended up dying before I graduated from the Coast Guard Academy. So he never knew the impact he made. And so that's another thing about this delayed gratification. A lot of the things you do today, you're not going to ever see the benefits from, but you have to look inward and do what's right, do the right thing, and understand that a lot of what you're doing is planting seeds for the future. And that's what it's all about, is giving back the wisdom. And doesn't mean you have to reap benefits from it. You need to learn to be selfless, and that's where that self-reflection comes in, like time in the pool, the time I've spent on sailboats, reflecting back on who I am. And then at this older age of life, that's why I wrote the book, is to give back the leadership lessons and maybe some of the wisdom that I garnered during this 40 years serving in uniform.